Hello guys, welcome to the Train Parrot. XRP Ripple has built a very similar pattern to this triangle that we built from around November 2024 and it broke out in July 2025. So it's natural to think what could be the next outcome of this? What could happen if we break this support of 2.7 and if we get a breakout, are we gonna really see $5 XRP next? In today's video, we're gonna do an in-depth analysis of XRP, of course, including XRP against Ethereum, liquidation pools. We'll see how we are doing on futures. Are we cooling down or heating up? Check into some news and see where is placed XRP relative to the rest of the coins in the market. Guys, if you want to trade XRP, you could consider opening an account on Bybit. This exchange requires KYC, but it's got a lot of volume traded, particularly when it comes to futures. It's an amazing exchange to connect for bot trading as well. Their APIs are one of the best in the game, and you can get, with my link in the description, 30,000 in welcome rewards. Of course, there is a $100 sign up bonus just by signing up. Have a look at it if you are interested to trading in the serious game. So let's go straight into the chart, and I'm gonna look at what happened in here on the RSI. After all, the last time that we talked about this, we were considering that XRP did a perfect hit of the revenge rally, and what we were speculating is, can we really get into 78 and repeat a second revenge rally? We call it revenge rally because we have lost this support at 57. We came back down, and after the hidden bullish divergence coming into this area, I call it the revenge rally. And it's very low likely, but sometimes it still happens that you get a second round of our revenge rally. That's why we tracked that 78, and I ended up leaving a line in here calling for 71 if we were to start having an upside. At the moment on the weekly, as you can see, the RSI closed with a small higher low in here at 54.41 versus 54.01. So if this week we close the beginning of October like this, we could form a double bottom. That's just speculation. I don't know if it's gonna happen. If it doesn't happen, we got the global support coming in at 36. So I'm tempted to still track 78, but 71 as a most conservative target, and then the 36 on the lower end. Let's see where that is in the price. So I got the numbers in here. The 78 in green is 5.25. The more conservative one that I was calling for is 4.1, and the global support is 168, which currently it stopped being a lower low relative to 161, the lows of the 7th of April. Remember as well that in my previous update on XRP, I say that if we manage to break the neckline of 2.7, losing the triangle in here, we could head towards the red. That at that date it was priced at 138, of course a lower low, but now that the RSI is coming up, we are meeting with that line at a higher low relative to this. Very interesting, because if we go to only 1.7, in theory this is just a swing low, a higher high, and a higher low next. Interesting if we did such a huge flash. Personally, if we repeat the seasonality bullishness of October and November, I would expect some sort of rally, and particularly because we got coming in October 16 crypto funds await a final decision, and whether you get it or not, as long as they don't leak any negative thing into the market, people are gonna trade the potential of getting this. Now another story if that ends up turning into some sort of sell the news event later. Now let's see how whales are positioning themselves against this expectation, and let's look at liquidity pools. We got a lot to cover, and hopefully below 10 minutes. So looking at CryptoQuant, you can see that particularly on XRP, I didn't see this on Solana, we got big whale orders, and we have a cooling futures volume bubble map. We still have dominant taker on both spot and futures, which means that people have been over the weekend dumping XRP, but that could be a combination of retail, maybe more lean towards retail doing this, because if you think about it and you focus on this area, that 2.7 is support. So if over the weekend they were dumping literally at support. If you break from this triangle, the technical target is pointing more or less where we meet with the red line coming up, which is $1.8. Whereas if we use all this high in here, which is what we should do to measure the breakout, we can get into the range of my conservative target. So 4.1 into $5.2 is kind of the range for this particular breakout. I will expect this one to be diminishing relative to what we already achieved in here, because this already attracted a lot of people, then we flush them and then we repeat. But people, when they trade this, are expecting way more, and typically you get diminishing highs and also with the momentum coming down too. Notice that the initial push made it to 91 RSI, and then the second one was just a revenge rally, so the likelihood of getting really into 78, it is tough. You really need something huge happening to XRP to get it to break against a second revenge rally and reclaim that and go into 90s again. We are in an area of value, and or we could say that we are slightly below value. I was tracking this and expecting we should come in here to look for longs. Well, now we are there, we are below it and starting the week from below. Socials are very low in here for XRP, so that's what whales prefer to enter. You can see that they are slightly putting some big orders. The futures bubble map peak at the highs when I was selling my XRP, but now it's cooling down at 2.7. Let's see how XRP is against Ethereum, because Ethereum already have a decent rally into 4.9k. I'm not saying Ethereum cannot do higher prices from here or have a rally from 4,000 to 4.5 or something, but if you compare XRP against Ethereum, you're gonna notice that we are bouncing off this support that is previous resistance, previous support. We spent many years below this, and it will be really nice if we saw continuation from here on XRP. We got this descending RSI that is further away from the resistance, coming in at 48. We need to track that 48, so for a breakout we need to push beyond 0.8 at the moment. So if XRP does this against Ethereum and holds that as support, it could ignite a decent rally against Ethereum. In terms of Z-score, you can see that we are in the area where we should be looking into rotating from Ethereum into XRP. Now, XRP is not my thing. I already have said that 100 times in my past videos, but you know, when I promise to deliver unbiased TA, that's what I do. Even if I don't like personally the coin, if I had something with it. In terms of news, we got two bullish news and one bearish. The most bullish one is the SEC final rulings on multiple spot XRP ETFs due in October. This means that they need to decide, of course, but there's going to be definitely a lot of expectations, and with that, traders are going to speculate, enter in big longs on futures. We already see big large orders coming in on CryptoQuant. XRP bulls eyes at $3 at ETF flows and Vanguard U-turn lift sentiment. This is part of the same news 2 days ago again. And the bearish ones is that XRP faces another 10% dip. When will the bulls step in? So for that, I want to go into the liquidity pools, okay? And you can see that this flag was breaking out on the daily, put a double top, came back and put a new low at 2.67 relative to 2.69. That's a lower low with the week, and it couldn't manage to take neither 1, 2, 3 or 4. We got 4 levels of red right below the price. You can see how homogeneous is this area in here. Definitely heavy. On the upside, there are some levels as high or even higher here at 3.67, pointing towards if we get some upside, we can go for those levels and hit the $4 mark, as I was pointing out, as a more conservative target relative to $5. But we got in here this legacy liquidity that we need to deal with, and it has increased pretty significantly because longs started entering on the double top. The liquidity starts from there, and as it comes back down, more and more longs enter, getting bullish. So at the moment, there is a decent risk that we go and pierce levels like 2.6 or even into 2.4. Yeah, there is more liquidity on the lower end, but that really destroys pretty much everything on XRP in my opinion. I'm talking about 1.7 and 1.8. You can see that even the momentum had a rough day in here because we broke out, and this level is 37, which is way lower than the bottom from where we started the breakout. That is almost 40. So 3 points below it. As a retest, we are in the middle of a painful retest, and that could drag for a little bit longer. No one knows for how long. Now, if Bitcoin enters October and November with a very strong push to the upside, we might as well leave that behind. And if we compare XRP, how it's positioned versus the rest of the altcoins, we can see that it's on the low end on the x-axis. Like here, we got plenty more to the right-hand side. XRP is more towards, well, one of the lowest in terms of this. What is that? That is the whale to retail delta. That means that XRP XRP has not yet a lot of wealth. It's still dominated by retail. That could represent a risk but also an opportunity, because risk goes hand in hand with reward, right? It means that wealth haven't entered, but maybe they haven't entered because they're expecting this downside to be cleared out first. Notice that entering before the whales do also gives you an edge, but that edge is at the cost of a higher risk. You can see in here how the whales have come lower and lower in here. There is some bid versus ask in the positive, not by a lot, and that's why XRP in the y-axis is more or less in the median relative to the rest of the market. Liquidations on the short term, we got here 3 months, and we can see that 3.2 and 3.4 have larger liquidation relative to going in 2.6. That's also interesting. And in the last 30 days, the largest liquidation pool is 2.9, followed by this one at 2.7. Doing a wrap up, we got a smaller version of the same flag that happened in here. And for the most bullish breakout, I will prefer that we start breaking out from 2.7. We take that liquidity and we go straight into 4.1 as part of a speculative trade against the expectation of getting those spot ETFs, those funds, and then after 4.1 just sell the news and get rid of it. If it continues high, no one cares. We are here to do a decent swing trade. Now, since the whales haven't entered yet, my questioning is why? We see on one hand some larger orders coming from whales, but overall, taking the whole aggregation of positions, this still shows that we are on a low end. So some have entered, but not yet to compensate to say all the whales are already positioned ready for a rally. So if you're planning to trade this, consider your risk management in case price needs to go slightly deeper to test the next support on the weekly, for example at 2.4, taking this liquidity first, which is not guaranteed, but it's always healthy to have that in your mind before deciding what's going to be your final strategy. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.